She stepped into that classroom like someone crossing an invisible border, carrying a world in a single backpack. To the boys, it was just another morning. Same jokes, same noise, same men's territory energy around computers, tools, and projects. But for Arani, the only Indigenous girl in an all-boys technical course, every pair of eyes felt like a spotlight, every whisper like a verdict. They noticed everything: her long black braid, her brown skin, the beaded necklace her grandmother made, the way she said good morning without lowering her gaze. Then the leader of the group decided she would be the joke of the semester. He smiled the kind of smile that never reaches the eyes and started with the classics. Relax, this isn't forest survival, okay? Do you even know how to turn a computer on? Must be nice to get in with quotas. The room laughed. The teacher fingernailed the desk and pretended not to hear. Arani swallowed hard, sat down, and opened her notebook like a shield. What no one there imagined is that the girl they were trying to push out would become the only reason that whole class didn't fall apart in front of everyone. On the list, her name was just another line in black ink. To Arani, it felt like a crack in a concrete wall. She had repeated it quietly to herself the whole bus ride from the edge of the city. Technical School of Renewable Energy, room 203. Every bump in the road shook the letters inside her mind. Every honk and shout outside the window reminded her how far she was from the sound of the river. When the bell rang, the boys didn't even slow down to notice her. They poured into the classroom like they owned the place, backpacks flying onto desks, chairs scraping, jokes bouncing from one side to the other. Screens lit up, boys argued about football, games, who was carrying the group in some online match. The room smelled like metal, sweat, cheap cologne, and the kind of confidence that had never had to explain itself. At the back, sitting sideways on his chair with his feet on another, was Lucas. Everybody knew he ran that class. He wasn't the best student, but when he laughed at someone, the whole room followed. That was enough. "Think we get any new guy this semester?" one of the boys asked. Lucas smirked without looking up. "If he's dumb, he can sit with you." They all laughed. No one saw Arani stop in the doorway. Her backpack was pressed tight against her chest, strap digging into her palms. Her long, straight black hair was braided neatly down her back, tied at the end with a thin red thread her grandmother had tied that morning, so courage wouldn't get lost on the way. Her skin was the color of sun on wet earth, and a small beaded necklace lay against her throat, the pattern of her people sewn into each tiny piece. For 3 long seconds, the noise died. Dozens of eyes turned to her, some eyebrows lifted. One boy's mouth opened slightly and stayed that way. The blue light of the monitors behind her made the room feel even colder, like she was standing between 2 worlds. In her village, light came warm, from the fire, from old lamps, from the moon resting on the river. Here the ceiling lights hummed like angry bees. "Good morning," she said. Her voice was steadier than her heartbeat. The teacher, Mr. Renato, looked up from his attendance sheet. His glasses sat low on his nose. His shirt was 1 size too big, his tiredness at least 10 years too old. "Ah," he said, searching the list. "You must be Arani, right?" She nodded. "Yes, sir." Someone in the back repeated, "Arani," stretching the syllables like gum. Another whisper slipped out. "Bro, is this a school or a reservation now?" Snickers. Eyes looked away, then back to check her reaction. Mr. Renato cleared his throat. "Class, this is Arani. She came from the Turi region. She'll be with us in the renewable energy course." Renewable energy. The words had tasted like hope when she read them on the poster in the community center. Now they sounded like a test. Can you renew yourself enough to survive here? Lucas finally looked up. His gaze walked over her slowly. The braid, the necklace, the simple jeans and worn sneakers. The backpack that wasn't a brand anyone recognized. It wasn't a look of curiosity. It was calculation, as if he'd just been told a new player had joined a game he thought he owned. "Do you want to introduce yourself?" the teacher asked. Inside, she screamed no. She wanted to sit down, be nobody, learn what she came to learn and go home. But then she saw her grandmother's face in her memory, the way her hands trembled when she gave Arani the bus money. "My name is Arani," she said. "I'm from an indigenous village by the Turi River." We have problems with energy and clean water. I came here to learn how to build systems that work there too, not only for the rich neighborhoods in the city." The words were simple, but they carried miles of road and years of silence inside them. Lucas raised his hand with exaggerated politeness. "Yes, Lucas?" asked Mr. Renato. He smiled, but his eyes didn't. "Just a question, teacher," he said. "This is a renewable energy course, right? Not, I don't know, advanced campfire and smoke signals?" Laughter exploded. A few boys slapped their desks. One made a fake drum sound with his hands. Another put 2 fingers like feathers above his head. "Okay, that's enough," the teacher said, forcing a laugh that came out wrong. "Let's show some respect." The room quieted, but nobody said sorry. They didn't need to. Their faces were still talking. Arani's cheeks burned. Back home, elders said words could either plant or destroy. Here, they were used like stones thrown just to see if someone would flinch. "Find an empty seat, please," Mr. Renato said more gently. She walked between the rows of desks, feeling backpacks spread wider, elbows leaning out a bit more, seats magically taken by invisible friends. It was like walking through a field of invisible fences. Finally, she found a chair in the middle, next to a boy with messy hair and headphones around his neck. He moved his backpack off the chair without looking at her. As she sat down, Lucas turned in his seat, leaned back and murmured just loud enough, "Relax, guys. Every zoo needs one exotic attraction." A few boys bit their lips, trying not to laugh. One looked away, uncomfortable, but said nothing. The first class began. Voltages, currents, diagrams of panels and batteries. While half the boys slowly melted into their chairs, Arani sat straight, pen hovering over an empty page. Numbers didn't care where she came from. That was why she loved them. At home, she had sketched solar panels on scraps of cardboard, calculating how many they would need to keep the medicine cool at night. She had counted the hours the generator stayed on, the money spent on diesel, the days they'd lost vaccines because of power cuts. Here, the same equations appeared in bright white on a clean board. Halfway through the lesson, Mr. Renato turned and wrote a problem. "All right," he said. "If we have this number of panels and this battery capacity, how long can we supply this basic load?" He put the chalk down and faced the class. "Who wants to try this one at the board?" No hand went up. Eyes dropped to notebooks, phones, the floor, anywhere but the board. The silence stretched. Arani's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. She did the calculation quickly in the margin of her notebook. The answer was there, waiting. "If you stay quiet, they will decide for you what you are," a small voice inside her said. "If you speak up, they'll at least have to look at you." Her hand rose before her fear could stop it. "I can try," she said. The room turned again, air tightening. "Of course she can," Lucas muttered. "In the forest, they have nothing else to do but count trees." "Lucas," the teacher warned sharply this time. Arani walked to the front. Her hands were damp, but the chalk felt familiar, like holding a piece of dry river stone. She took a breath. First step, second step. She wrote the numbers and spoke at the same time, explaining her reasoning. Her voice started a little thin, then grew steadier as the math took over. Numbers didn't laugh. Numbers didn't call her names. When she finished, the solution sat on the board. Clean, correct, and undeniable. Mr. Renato's face softened. "Exactly right," he said. "That's the process I want to see." "Very good, Arani." A low wave of murmurs ran through the room. The quiet boy next to her desk glanced up, something like respect flickering in his eyes. One of Lucas's closest friends looked annoyed. Lucas just stared at the board like it had betrayed him. On her way back to her seat, Arani's knees trembled, but her spine didn't. "You got lucky," Lucas whispered as she passed. "Let's see what happens when it's not just a pretty little equation." At lunch break, she escaped to the edge of the school, where concrete gave way to a narrow view of sky. She sat on a low wall, unwrapped the flatbread and dried fish her grandmother had packed, and took off her necklace for a moment, closing it in her fist. "You're not here to be liked," she reminded herself. "You're here to learn what they never wanted to teach you." Above her on a balcony, Lucas watched with his arms crossed. One of his friends leaned on the rail. So, what about the forest princess? Lucas's mouth twisted into a smile that never reached his eyes. Teacher said there's a big group project coming, he said, if she wants to play with the big boys. He looked down at Arani, alone with her food and her courage. Let's make sure she remembers exactly where she walked into. The group project was worth almost half the grade. When Mr. Renato wrote the instructions on the board, the room finally fell quiet. Each team had to design a small renewable energy system that could realistically work in a low-income community. Real numbers, real costs, real impact. At the end, they would present in front of external guests, an engineer, a professor, and someone from an NGO. As he spoke, Arani felt the words sink into her bones. This is why I came, she thought. This is not just school. This is home. Around her, the class buzzed with the same excitement boys had before a championship match. Groups began to form almost instantly. The louder ones pulled chairs together. The quieter ones were pulled in like spare parts. Before she could move, Lucas raised his hand. Teacher, can we choose our own teams? He asked. Yes, Mr. Renato replied, but everyone must be in a group. No one works alone. Lucas clapped once like a coach. Okay, same teams as last semester, he announced. We already know how not to fail. He pointed around the room, choosing people without actually looking at them. You're with me, you too. And you? His finger skimmed past Arani as if she were a shadow. What about me? She asked, forcing her voice not to shake. He paused dramatically, lips curving. You? He said. We don't even know if you're staying, right? These courses are hard. People drop out. Would be sad to get stuck with a heavy load if it's too much for you. A low wave of laughter rolled through the room. Mr. Renato's jaw tightened. She is staying, he said firmly. She's in this class. She will be in a group. Lucas shrugged like he was making a generous sacrifice. Fine, he said. She can be with us. We'll make room. The space they made was at the edge of the table, both literally and socially. From the first meeting, the hierarchy was obvious. Lucas talked. Two boys handled the spreadsheet. One said he'd do the speech because he liked the spotlight. Another offered to build the slides. Responsibilities flowed around her like water around a stone. We'll let her handle research, Lucas decided. Basic stuff, background, the parts nobody reads. Arani opened her notebook. What community are we designing for? She asked. Flood area? Rural settlement? Factory neighborhood? The outskirts, Lucas replied. My dad has property there. We'll make something modern, pretty, sponsored. Looks good in photos. That's vague, she said. Do they have grid access? How much do they pay now? How many people per house? If we don't know their reality, we're not solving anything. One boy rolled his eyes. Chill, he muttered. It's just a project. It's not just anything if it pretends to help people, she answered. The air cooled a few degrees. Lucas tapped his pen on the table, smiling in that way that meant trouble. Look, he said. We've done projects here before. You're new. Do your part. Look up some stuff online. We'll handle the rest. You've done decoration, she thought. I came for solutions. At home, she stayed up late reading reports about energy poverty, case studies of small solar systems in riverside communities, data about costs and failures. The generator hummed outside her window, then cut off when fuel ran out, plunging everything into hot, familiar darkness. She read by flashlight until the battery faded. By the third meeting, she brought a folder thicker than any of their notebooks. I found real projects we can adapt, she said, spreading pages on the table. 2 in villages like mine, 1 in a hillside neighborhood. They're simple, cheap, already working. We can improve them. We want something original, Lucas said, barely glancing down. Not copy-paste from some article. It's not copy-paste, she replied. It's respect. They already solved half of what we're pretending to invent. He sighed loudly, as if she were making things difficult on purpose. Scan it, send it to the group, he said. Maybe I'll use something. He didn't. When presentation day approached, Tension settled over the school like heavy clouds. Posters were taped, models carried carefully through hallways. Last-minute arguments exploded outside classrooms. In their group chat, notifications popped up all night. "We're finishing the slides." I adjusted the colors. "Relax, it's looking sick." No one sent her a single page. The morning of the presentations, she arrived early. "Can I see the slides before we present?" she asked one of the boys. "Later," he said quickly. "Lucas is polishing." A splinter of dread lodged under her ribs. They were the final group of the day. The engineer and professor looked tired. The NGO woman rubbed her temples, pen tapping against her clipboard. Still, when Mr. Renato called their names, he straightened his posture. "Last one," he said. "Make it worth our time." They walked to the front. The projector lit up the screen with the title, "Urban Light for All." The name felt empty, marketed. Lucas stepped forward, confidence radiating off him like heat. "Good afternoon," he began. "We're here to present a solution for energy access in underserved areas of our city." The slides rolled. Sleek icons, generic photos, buzzwords. Arani stared, stunned. There was no real data, no cost table, no mention of the community profiles she'd researched. Her nights of reading had been cut out like a tumor. Where is the reality, she thought? Where are the people? On one slide, a photo appeared in the corner. Wooden houses by a river, clothes on a line, children barefoot in the mud. It looked disturbingly familiar. Under it, a caption, "Target areas with low development." Her throat tightened. To them, we are scenery, she realized. Even when we bleed into their work, we're just background. One of the guests, the engineer, raised his hand. "Who defined these target areas?" he asked. "Did anyone here actually live in a community like this?" Lucas gestured lazily toward her. "Our colleague here has experience," he said. "She knows that world." It was the first time he'd acknowledged her existence in front of everyone. All eyes shifted to her. "Would you like to say something about that?" the professor asked. "You're from a village, right?" 3 seconds. That was all the time she had. She could swallow the anger and let the lie stand, or she could step into the silence they'd accidentally opened and risk everything. Her heart hammered so loud she almost couldn't hear her own voice. "Yes," Arani said. "I would like to speak." For a half second, nobody moved. Then, the engineer nodded. "Please, you're part of this group." She stepped forward, feeling Lucas's stare burn between her shoulder blades. "The presentation you saw," she began, "is pretty, but it's not honest." A ripple went through the classroom. Someone coughed, someone shifted in their seat. Lucas laughed lightly into the microphone. "She's nervous," he said. "It's her first big presentation. Let her talk," the NGO woman snapped, surprising everyone, including herself. Arani swallowed. Her hands trembled, but her words didn't. "Our project says we're going to bring energy to poor communities," she continued. "It shows photos like this." She pointed at the slide with the riverside houses. "But no one here except me has ever slept in a house like that. No one here knows what it's like when the generator dies at midnight and the medicine gets warm, or when your mother has to choose between buying food or fuel." Some of the boys looked away. Others stared harder, daring her to continue. "I spent nights researching real systems that people like my family use," she said. "Low-cost solar kits, community batteries, solutions that already work. I gave all of this to my group." She turned toward Lucas, not with hatred, but with the slow, cold clarity of someone tired of swallowing stones. "They chose not to use it," she said. "They chose something that looks good, sounds modern, fits nicely on a slide, but would fail the first time the rain came or the bill arrived." Lucas snatched the microphone from its stand. "Okay, enough," he said, laughing, but his voice had an edge. "This is a team project. We all worked. If you had problems, you should have brought them to us, not turned this into a drama show." He faced the guests, smile tight. "Sorry," he said. "She's passionate about these issues. We respect that. But technically, everything is solid. We checked the numbers." The engineer raised an eyebrow. "Did you?" he asked. He walked closer to the screen, pointing at one of the graphs. "This cost estimate," he said. "Where did it come from?" Lucas opened his mouth, closed it, then gestured vaguely toward the group. "We researched average prices," he said. "Internet, suppliers." The engineer looked at Arani. "Did you see this budget?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "It can't be built for that. Not with those parts. Not legally, at least. So the only person in your group who has actually lived in a low-energy context is telling me this system won't work," he said slowly, turning back to Lucas. "And you presented it anyway?" Lucas's jaw clenched. "With all respect, sir," he said, "we can't build a whole project around one person's feelings. She wanted to put some indigenous stuff in everything. Stories, village things. We're doing science here, not folklore." The word hit harder than a slap. The class buzzed. Someone in the back muttered, "He went too far." Another snickered. Heat shot up Arani's neck. The microphone cable brushed her fingers. Everyone was looking at her now, not like a teammate, but like a problem. She didn't join half the meetings. One boy added quickly, sensing an opening. "We had to move on without her." "That's not true," she said. "I came. You ignored. So now I'm a liar?" Lucas snapped, finally dropping the mask. "You show up here first semester and suddenly you know more than everyone? You think because you grew up in the forest you're the only one who understands hardship? We work too. We have bills, families. You're not the center of the world, Arani." Laughter. Nervous, uneasy, real. The teacher didn't move. His eyes darted from judge to students to the floor, like he was trying to find a version of this moment where he didn't lose control. For a second, guilt stabbed her. Maybe I should have stayed quiet. Maybe I should have just taken the grade and gone home. But beneath that, something older stirred. Of her father being called lazy because he refused to sign a paper he couldn't read. Of her grandmother whispering, "They will always call our voice drama," when it interrupts their comfort. The NGO woman stood up. "I'd like to ask the only person here who has actually lived without reliable energy a question," she said, eyes fixed on Arani. "If the project were yours alone, what would you have done differently?" Lucas threw his hands up. "Come on," he protested. "This is supposed to be about our work, not her feelings." And there it was, the line he couldn't resist crossing. "This is her work," the NGO woman said sharply. "You used her image, her reality, her world as decoration. You don't get to silence her now." The room held its breath. Arani felt every gaze burning into her, every expectation, every assumption. She could design a better system right there, right now. The equations lived in her notebooks, in her memory. The model was clear in her mind, but her throat closed. Not from ignorance, from the weight of knowing that no matter how exact her answer was, half the room had already decided who she was. Her eyes stung. "If I answer," she thought, "they'll say I'm showing off. If I stay quiet, they'll say I had nothing." Her silence lasted 1 second too long. "See?" Lucas said quickly, seizing the moment. "It's not as simple as she makes it sound. We all worked. We all care. But some people prefer to complain instead of being part of the solution." He turned back to the judges with a wounded expression polished in 100 arguments at home. "If we made mistakes, we'll fix them," he said. "That's what this course is for. But turning this into a personal attack, it's unfair. To us and to the school." The professor looked troubled. The engineer's face was unreadable. The NGO woman's jaw was clenched so tight her neck muscles trembled. "Thank you," Mr. Renato said abruptly, voice thin. "We're running out of time. The committee will evaluate all projects and announce feedback next week." Dismissed. Just like that. As they walked back to their seats, Lucas leaned close to her ear. "Next time you want to be the star," he whispered, "join a talent show, not my group." Her chest felt hollow, eyes on her, some pitying, some amused, many relieved it wasn't them. When the bell finally rang, she went straight to the courtyard, past the noise, past the jokes, past the posters being peeled off walls. She stopped only when she reached the fence that bordered the far end of the school, where beyond the cracked concrete she could see a thin strip of trees, and far away, a gleam of water. Her hands tightened on the metal. I shouldn't have said anything, she thought. I handed them my truth and they turned it into more ammunition. A soft voice broke the spiral. Arani? She turned. It was the NGO woman, now without the clipboard, her formal jacket slung over one shoulder. I'm sorry, Arani said automatically. I shouldn't have interrupted. I know you came to see projects, not... I came to see reality, the woman said, and I saw it, very clearly. She walked closer, lowering her voice. They think today was a public humiliation for you, she said. They have no idea how much they exposed themselves instead. What does it matter? Arani murmured. They'll forget. They'll say I was emotional. They'll move on. Some will, the woman agreed. Most probably, but I won't. And the engineer won't either. We were talking after your group left the room. Arani frowned. About what? About the fact, the woman said, that their project is completely unviable, and that the only reason it had any chance at all is sitting in front of me, thinking she failed. The courtyard seemed to tilt slightly. I have a proposal, the woman continued, but it doesn't go through them. It goes through you. A breeze lifted a loose strand of Arani's hair. Somewhere a bell rang for the next class. Boys shouted, laughed, shoved each other playfully. She barely heard them. What proposal? She asked, her voice barely more than a breath. The woman smiled, not the tight, polite smile of adults in brochures, but something warmer, almost conspiratorial. How do you feel about designing a project, she said, where no one gets to turn your village into a background picture ever again? And that was how the incredible part of the story truly began. Not in a classroom, but in a quiet corner of a schoolyard, with one question that would flip the balance of power in ways no one there saw coming. The results were supposed to be just another line on the school bulletin board. Instead, they became the crack that split the semester in two. On Monday morning, students clustered in front of the sheet of paper taped crookedly to the wall near the office. Names, group numbers, and a few official words, typed in polite black. Arani approached slowly, heart steady. She had decided over the weekend that grades were just numbers. She had lived through things numbers couldn't measure. Then she saw it. Group 4, Project, Urban Light for All. Status, disqualified for technical inconsistency and lack of methodological transparency. Below it, in smaller print that almost no one read at first, note, one member of the group has been individually invited to join an external development program based on demonstrated knowledge and lived experience in the project's area of focus. Wait, what? Someone said aloud. Disqualified? Another repeated. Is that us? Yes, genius, one of Lucas's friends snapped. We're Group 4. A hot flush crawled up Lucas's neck. This is bull, he muttered. We worked hard. Someone complained. It's her, obviously. As if summoned by the word, he turned and saw Arani standing at the edge of the crowd, reading the same lines. You happy now? He said loudly, stepping toward her. You dragged us down just to play victim. You couldn't stand not being the center, so you sabotaged your own group. Heads turned. A circle formed without anyone meaning to. I didn't sabotage anything, she said calmly. Your project sabotaged itself. Yeah, he shot back. And what's this one-member invited thing? Did you cry to the NGO lady until she patted your head and gave you a sticker? The air thickened. Some students smirked. Others watched with the fascination people reserve for car crashes and scandals. Before she could answer, a familiar voice cut through the tension. Actually, the NGO woman said, appearing from the office hallway with a folder in hand. That decision was mine, and his. She nodded toward the engineer standing beside her. We reviewed every project over the weekend, he said. Most had flaws. That's normal. You're students. You're here to learn. But only one group presented something that was not just flawed but dishonest. His gaze landed on Lucas. You used imagery of vulnerable communities as decoration, he continued. You ignored real data presented by someone who lives that reality, and when confronted, you used her identity as a weapon against her. That's not a technical error, that's a character issue. A murmur rose. Someone in the back whispered, "They really said that?" Lucas's jaw clenched. "What does that have to do with energy systems?" he demanded. "Everything," the engineer replied. "You think cables and panels are neutral? The decisions of people who design them decide who has light and who stays in the dark. If you treat whole communities like props at 18, what kind of engineer will you be at 30? Silence, heavy and uncomfortable. The NGO woman turned to Arani. "We can't change how this project was handled," she said. "But we can choose who we trust to work with us in the real world." She opened the folder and pulled out a simple sheet with a letterhead. "This is an invitation," she explained. "Our organization is starting a pilot program to develop low-cost, community-run energy systems in river regions. We need people who understand both the technical side and the lived reality. You showed us you do." Arani stared at the paper as if it might evaporate. I'm still studying," she said. "I don't have a degree. It's not a job," the woman said. "Not yet. It's a mentorship, training, field visits, a small scholarship so you don't have to choose between bus fare and lunch. You'd join a team of engineers and technicians. Some will know more equations than you. None will know your world like you do." The hallway felt suddenly too small. Emotion rose in Arani's chest, sharp and bright. "So while we get disqualified," one of Lucas's friends snapped. "She gets a prize?" "This isn't a prize," the engineer corrected. "It's responsibility. Something you might have gotten too, if you'd treated her as a partner instead of an obstacle." All eyes swung between Lucas and Arani. For the first time since she'd met him, Lucas seemed genuinely lost for words. The practiced comebacks, the easy arrogance, the usual armor, cracked. "This is ridiculous," he finally said, weaker than before. "Everyone's overreacting. We just made jokes." "It's normal. Maybe that's the problem," the NGO woman replied. "That this is normal to you." She turned to the crowd. "For those interested," she added, "we'll be hosting a public presentation in 2 months. A group of students will present updated versions of their projects to community leaders and potential partners. We've asked your teacher to choose one student representative to co-lead the session with us." She looked back at Arani. "He already gave us a name." Later, in the staff room, Mr. Renato would admit he had spent half the weekend ashamed of his silence in that classroom. Choosing her name had been the first step in correcting a mistake he didn't want to live with. In the hallway, whispers spun fast. "She's going to present for real? In front of actual people, not just teachers? Do you think they'll be on TV?" Lucas pushed past them, shoulder hitting the wall. The loudest boy in the room suddenly seemed small inside his own skin. That afternoon, on the bus ride home, Arani held the folder on her lap, fingers tracing the logo at the top. Outside, the city slowly thinned. Buildings shrank. Asphalt turned to red dust. The river appeared, glittering and familiar. When she stepped off the bus, children ran to her, asking how the big school was. Elders watched from doorways, their faces a map of lines and rivers of their own. Her grandmother waited by the door, eyes shining even before Arani said a word. "How is the city?" she asked. "Tired," Arani answered, loud, confused. "And you?" "Still here," she said, lifting the folder. "And they want me to help build something, for us. With us. Not as photo, as work." That night, under the same sky that faintly lit the city and the village, she spread her notebooks on the table. Diagrams, numbers, names of materials, notes from the engineer, ideas from conversations in hammocks and under trees. In another part of town, Lucas lay awake, replaying the scene in the hallway. For the first time, he wondered if his father's way of talking about those people wasn't strength, but fear dressed as arrogance. Weeks later, when the public presentation finally happened, the school's small auditorium was packed. Students, parents, community leaders, reporters with small cameras. On stage, flanked by the engineer and the NGO woman, stood Arani. No joke introductions, no edited graphs, just her, a simple model of a community solar system on a table beside her, and photos from her village, this time not as pity bait, but as partners in a shared project. She spoke calmly, explaining how the system worked, how the community would manage it, how costs would be divided, and what technology they'd adapted from other regions and what they had invented themselves. She mentioned the boys only once. "I was part of a group that didn't hear me," she said. "Today, I'm part of a team that can't afford not to listen to people like us. That's the difference I want to help build." In the third row, half hidden under a cap, Lucas watched. He didn't clap at first. Then he did, once, twice, then more, until the sound around him swallowed his hesitation. Because in the end, the most unbelievable part wasn't that the Indigenous girl they had mocked had won something. It was that she had turned humiliation into a bridge. From the classroom to the village, from the joke to the solution, from being tolerated in silence to being heard in front of everyone.